A very good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television, the perfect show to kickstart your day, bringing you the top national, international sports and business news. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor and here are this morning's headlines. Prime Minister Modi holds a first bilateral meeting with US President Donald Trump. Leaders discuss counter-terrorism, trade and defense cooperation. Call on Pakistan to stop its soil from being used as terror launch pads. Prime Minister Modi leaves for the Netherlands for the last leg of his visit. Big win for India. US declares Pakistan-based Hizbul chief Syed Salahuddin as a global terrorist. Salahuddin had vowed to block any peaceful resolution to the Kashmir conflict. Chinese troops enter India in Sikkim, scuffle with the army jawans, destroy Indian bunkers. Incident happened in the first week of June. Government looks to help industry prepare for the GST, defers the implementation of TDS TCS provisions, hopes for a smooth rollout on 1st of July this year. And the US Supreme Court partially reinstates Donald Trump's 90-day travel ban on 6 Muslim-majority countries. Trump welcomes the ruling, calls it a victory for national security. After finishing his two-day United States visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has today embarked on his last leg of the visit to the Netherlands. His visit marks the celebration of 70 years of the establishment of diplomatic ties between India and the Netherlands. Netherlands Foreign Minister Bert Koenders visited India in May in preparation for the Prime Minister's visit. In The Hague, Prime Minister Modi will meet the Dutch Prime Minister H.E. Mark Rutte and hold official talks with him. The discussions between the two leaders will cover the whole gamut of bilateral issues, including investments and trade, scientific and technical collaborations and cultural exchanges. They will also share their views on many global issues, including counter-terrorism, climate change, United Nations reforms, Brexit and its impact, among others. 2 MOUs, one each on water management and cultural exchange, will also be exchanged. Prime Minister Modi's visit is expected to enhance economic relations with the Netherlands, which is the leading foreign investor in our country. All right, let's get some more updates. Akhilesh Suman is joining us on the phone line. A very good morning, Akhilesh. Before we speak about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the Netherlands, we really need to speak about Prime Minister Modi's and US President Donald Trump's first summit, because the two leaders struck a common note on terrorism, vowing to strengthen efforts to fight the menace, also calling on Pakistan to stem terrorist attacks with the focus on pushing the strategic ties.
Yeah, it's really very interesting and heartening that President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi were one at the question of terrorism. And in the joint statement, the name of Pakistan was mentioned very clearly.
Yes.
That Pakistan should not be used as a launch pad for terrorists. So it is generally US refrains from such type of wording used against, particularly against Pakistan, because Pakistan has been a country which US too has been using in fight against Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So this time, I think the way Mr. Trump has used the word against Pakistan,
yes,
that means that in the coming days, India and USA are going to cooperate closely on the question of terrorism that is coming from Pakistan. And India has always been insisting that the menace of terrorism is not only in the Middle Eastern countries, in the South Asian countries, which is comparatively free from IS phenomena and also Taliban phenomena. It is a different type of terrorism that is sponsored by the state, and this state is Pakistan state. So this was the thing that US was not ready to believe, but this time Mr. Trump and Mr. Modi have come together on the same page.
Yes.
And I think it is a very it's a red herring rather for Pakistan that it should refrain from using its soil. And Syed Salahuddin, before Prime Minister and President met, Syed Salahuddin has been named as a global terrorist. So after Hafiz Saeed, Syed Salahuddin has been named. So only person who is left now is Maulana Masood Azhar.
Yes.
And I think in coming days, on that question also, India and US will work together. That's
Right.
yeah.
And Akhilesh, now Prime Minister Modi has embarked on his tour to Netherlands as well. The two nations celebrating the 70 years of the starting of the diplomatic ties between the two nations.
Yeah, naturally, Netherlands has been one of the most important countries for India in that region. And Netherlands has been very good in some of the technology that India needs. So I think that Prime Minister Modi has very meticulously chosen Netherlands, not only for technology, but also for strategic reasons. Because you know that Netherlands is also a country that is there in the energy, and Netherlands has some sort of influence over many countries of the world. So Prime Minister has chosen very deliberately that Netherlands should be taken on board on question of terrorism, on the question of energy, and also when we are raising the issue of reforming United Nations Security Council, Netherlands will be very important country for us. This was it.
All right, Akhilesh, thank you so much for all those updates there. And earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump struck a common note on terrorism as they met for the first time at the White House on Monday. The two leaders vowed to fight against terrorism, saying it was the topmost priority. Both the countries also reviewed bilateral relations and affirmed their commitment to take the partnership to new heights.
Prime Minister Modi met US President Donald Trump at the White House on Monday in the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders. Prime Minister expressed gratitude for the warm welcome extended to him and said he was deeply touched with the grand welcome he and his delegation received during this trip.
जिस प्रकार से मेरा और मेरे डेलीगेशन का भव्य स्वागत किया है, सम्मान किया है, ये 125 करोड़ देशवासियों का सम्मान है। मैं इसके लिए राष्ट्रपति जी का और फर्स्ट लेडी का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ।
It's a great honor to have Prime Minister Modi of India, who has been such a great Prime Minister. I've been speaking with him and reading about you, and you have done a great job.
The two leaders held delegation-level talks and affirmed their commitment to bolster the US-India strategic partnership. Both the countries struck a common note on terrorism and agreed to enhance cooperation in fighting the menace of terrorism, extremism and radicalization. The two leaders also sent out a strong message to Pakistan, asking it to ensure that its territory was not used to launch cross-border terror strikes.
चर्चा की तथा इसमें अपने सहयोग को बढ़ाने पर भी सहमति बनाई। आतंकवाद से लड़ना और आतंकवादियों को सुरक्षित पनाहगाहों को समाप्त करना हमारी सहभागिता का एक महत्वपूर्ण भाग होगा।
Briefing the media after talks, US President Donald Trump said the relationship between the two countries had never been stronger and better. Trump also said he was keen to work with Modi on creating a fair and reciprocal trading relationship between the two nations. He also called for a removal of barriers for the exports of US goods into Indian markets.
The relationship between India and the United States has never been stronger, has never been better. I'm proud to announce to the media, to the American people, and to the Indian people that Prime Minister Modi and I are world leaders in social media. We're believers, giving the citizens of our countries the opportunity to hear directly from their elected officials and for us to hear directly from them. I guess it's worked very well in both cases.
Earlier in the day, the Prime Minister also met US Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis and US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Prime Minister held an extensive discussion on counter-terrorism with Mattis during their meeting. They also discussed the situation in Afghanistan.
There was discussion on counter-terrorism, cooperation in counter-terrorism again. In fact, first because Secretary Mattis's meeting was the first. And there was discussion also on the situation in Afghanistan, and the conversation briefly touched upon how the situation can evolve and what the two countries can do together.
Later in the day, President Trump hosted a dinner in honor of Prime Minister Modi. Modi, who was visiting US for the 5th time in 3 years, extended a warm invitation to President Trump and his family to visit India. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And the United States has designated a Pakistan-based Hizbul Mujahideen chief Syed Salahuddin as a specially designated global terrorist. Now, the move by the US State Department comes hours before the first meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump at the White House. In a notification, the State Department said that Salahuddin, who hails from Kashmir and is based in Pakistan for the last 28 years, has committed or poses a serious risk of committing acts of terrorism. The action came against the backdrop of upsurge in terror activities by Hizbul Mujahideen in Kashmir over the last several months. The move has been welcomed by India, which said that it underlines quite strongly that both the countries face threat of terrorism.
The State Department did the designation of Syed Salahuddin of the Hizbul Mujahideen as a specially designated global terrorist. So I think that was a strong signal coming out of the administration that it was committed to ending terror in all forms.
On to the other top story. In a major provocation, the Chinese troops recently entered India in the Sikkim sector and jostled with the Indian Army personnel guarding the Indo-Sino frontier. The Chinese troops also destroyed 2 Indian bunkers. The face-off has been going on in the Dokala General area in Sikkim for the past 10 days. The Chinese troops have also stopped the batch of pilgrims that was proceeding for Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. The Indian troops had to struggle hard to stop the Chinese personnel from advancing further into the Indian territory. They formed a human wall along the line of actual control to stop the PLA personnel, some of whom also videographed and clicked pictures of the incident. The bunkers have been destroyed in a Laltain area of the Dokala area. A flag meeting was also held between senior army officers of both the sides on 20th of June, but the tension still continues. It is not the first time that such a transgression has happened at the area, a place at the Sikkim-Bhutan-Tibet tri-junction. The Chinese forces had in November 2008 also destroyed some makeshift Indian Army bunkers at the same place. Meanwhile, China on Monday said that it was in touch with India over the continuation of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra through the Nathula Pass in Sikkim. The statement comes days after it refused entry to the Indian pilgrims, citing damage to road in Tibet due to landslides and rains. The matter was taken up by the External Affairs Ministry with China. The pilgrims were stopped by the Chinese officials at the Sino-India border. They were scheduled to cross over to the Chinese side on 19th of June, but they failed to do so due to inclement weather. On 23rd of June, China denied entry to them due to damage to roads. 2 batch of pilgrims returned to Delhi yesterday. And the government has deferred the provision for a tax deduction and collection at a source under the GST. The decision is taken to ensure smooth rollout of the GST from 1st of the next month. It is in view of the feedback received from industry and trade. The statement from Finance Ministry said that persons who will be liable to deduct or collect tax at source will be required to take registration, but the liability to deduct or collect tax will arise from the date when the sanctions are brought in force. The step will provide more time for persons liable to deduct a tax at source and e-commerce companies and their suppliers to prepare for the historic tax reform. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley on Monday wrote to Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti urging for the introduction of a GST in the state from 1st of July like other states. Remember, all the states except Jammu and Kashmir have passed the State GST Act. And the textile industry will observe a 72-hour strike starting from 27th of June to 29th of June in protest against the GST Council's decision to levy a 5% goods and services tax on the sector. Now, the traders are demanding the withdrawal of the taxes on textiles. They are also demanding a tax exemption from man-made fibers under the new tax regime. Now, the government has levied a 18% tax on man-made fibers sector.
Textile traders in Delhi's Chandni Chowk have called for a strike starting Tuesday to protest against the implementation of GST on textiles. They say that the announcement of 5% GST tax by the government has badly hit business.
वो जो फॉर्मेलिटी सबसे बड़ी वो तो उन्होंने लिख के दे रखा है कि ये जमा कराना पड़ेगा, ये करना पड़ेगा। ये हम लोग जो है पुराने आदमी हैं, इसमें मोबाइल नंबर फीड नहीं कर पाते हैं, तो कंप्यूटर या मोबाइल कहाँ से चलाएं? मैं 25,000 महीना कमाता हूँ, वो 30,000 का एक आदमी रखूँगा यहाँ पर उसको सर्कुलेट करने के लिए, मैं कहाँ से अफोर्ड करूँगा उसको?
Other traders like Gurdeep believe that the entire textile business will be ruined if GST is not withdrawn.
It's been only 15 days जब ये रूल पास हुआ है और हमारे पास 15 days का टाइम काफ़ी नहीं है, क्योंकि more than 25 करोड़ पीपल जो हैं वो इस ट्रेड के अंदर जुड़े हुए हैं। इतने सारे लोगों को इतना सारा काम करने के लिए इतना कम टाइम नहीं है, काफ़ी नहीं है।
The textile traders are demanding that either the government withdraw the 5% tax levied on textiles or exempt them from the law for a few more months. Also, under the new GST rule, e-bill will be required instead of a paper bill on transporting goods worth over 50,000 rupees. The Delhi Hindustani Mercantile Association, which represents the traders of Chandni Chowk, says the implementation of GST can stall the businesses of small traders.
ये व्यापारियों के हाथ से निकल के बड़ी कॉरपोरेट कंपनियों के पास चला जाएगा। मुझे लगता है गवर्नमेंट की इच्छा भी यही है कि हम निकल जाएं इसमें से।
Till date, around 1 million small and medium-sized units were paying no duty so far. But all that will end with the government imposing 5% tax on cotton, textiles, yarn and fabric. 18% tax have been levied on synthetic or man-made fibers and synthetic threads. Anu Diwan's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
On to some other news now. The CVC or the Central Vigilance Commission can now probe allegations of corruption in private sector banks and against their employees. The Vigilance Commissioner T.M. Bhasin said that RBI and the Department of Financial Services had recently approved the provisions in this regard. Bhasin said that necessary mechanism has been put in place and cases of corruption in the private sector banks are now being looked into. The move comes after the Supreme Court last year ruled that the chairman, managing directors and other officers of a private bank could be seen as the public servants when it comes to the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988. The apex court had said that all the officials working in banks operating under the RBI license would be defined as public servants under the PC Act. It also said that bank employees, private or public, were on public duty and therefore came under the law. Let's move on. A parliamentary panel examining a bill which seeks to accord constitutional status to the National Commission for Backward Classes has reached a consensus, paving the way for its likely passage in the Rajya Sabha in the monsoon session. With the passage of the bill, the NCBC, a statutory body under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, will get a constitutional status. The bill was referred to the Rajya Sabha's Select Committee after the opposition prevailed on the government to do so. It was passed by the Lok Sabha in April this year, but the opposition blocked its consideration in the House. A consensus has been reached in the committee with MPs of all the parties in the panel agreeing for the constitutional status to the Commission. All right, news from the northeast, and the flood situation in Assam worsened on Monday as 4 new districts were hit by flood, taking the total number of flood-hit districts to 8. Now, according to Assam State Disaster Management Authority, flood has affected Lakhimpur, Karimganj, Jorhat, Karbi, Anglong, Hojai, Golaghat, Sivas Sagar and Sonitpur districts, overrunning 126 villages in 11 revenue circles. Over 1 lakh people in 8 districts are affected by the flood. 8 relief camps have been set up, with 7 of them being in Sonitpur district and 1 in Karimganj. Meanwhile, in Madhya Pradesh, 5 persons were killed and 2 others were injured after being struck by lightning at 3 places. Meanwhile, heavy rains also lashed Uttarakhand in the early hours, bringing relief from humid conditions. Dehradun received 177 millimeters of rains, followed by Mussoorie 150 millimeters and Jakoli 71.2 millimeters. Now, the Met Department has said that monsoon is expected to hit Delhi and its neighbouring areas in the next 3 to 4 days. Met Department has also warned of heavy to very heavy rains at isolated places, with extremely heavy rainfall at isolated places over Konkan and Goa. And in breakfast news, time for a very short break. Up next, we have all the sports and international news.
The sacred relics of Buddha were unearthed in Piprava in Uttar Pradesh. Buddhist monks from all over the world visit the National Museum to pay their respects. These charred bone fragments of Buddha are housed in the gold canopy gifted by the royal family of Thailand.
Our top international story: in a major victory for US President Donald Trump, the country's Supreme Court allowed parts of his travel ban to go into effect. Now, the court allowed the ban to be enforced against foreign nationals who lack any bona fide relationship with any persons or entry in the United States. Now, Trump called the decision a clear victory for our national security. The top court will hear further arguments in the case in October this year.
Partial victory for US President Donald Trump, who is looking to place a 90-day ban on people from 6 mainly Muslim nations and a 120-day ban on refugees. The US Supreme Court on Monday revived parts of the travel ban, saying it could be enforced against those who lack a credible claim of a bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the United States. The ban had earlier been put on hold by lower courts. The country top court's ruling is now likely to lead to chaos at airports around the US amid confusion around precisely what qualifies as a bona fide relationship with the US.
They need to take the security measures because it's not a good time over right now. But still, they can't just, ban everybody. They should, take some security measures and allow good people to come in and allow take the bad people out.
Honestly, as a Muslim American, I'm a little concerned for this country's, future and aspects of, how they portray Muslims. And, I like to say Muslim American, I can tell you that ISIS does not represent Islam. And so seeing this travel ban and seeing how some people are, advocating for this ban, it's concerning for me.
The ruling would remain in force until the court hears the case in full in October. It affects travelers from Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria and Yemen for 90 days unless they can demonstrate personal links to the United States or offer to attend American universities. President Donald Trump welcomed the ruling as a victory for national security. He added that as president, he could not allow people into country who want to do harm. Trump has already said the ban would take effect within 72 hours of court approval. However, critics say the ban is unconstitutional.
It's clear that President Trump instituted this ban and the one before it, because, as he put it, he thinks Islam hates us, that we have a problem with Muslims in the United States, and that he wants to see a reduction or a halt of Muslim immigration to the United States. And that's fundamentally incompatible with our Constitution.
Trump has consistently argued that his ban, which was first introduced in January before being revised in March, was justified on security grounds. But lower courts ruled that the president overstepped his authority and that his executive order was discriminatory. With Supreme Court upholding parts of ban, Trump claims his stand has been vindicated. During his campaign for the presidency last year, Trump had said that he wanted to ban all Muslims from entering the United States. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, so let's get you some more international news in World Wrap. Brazil's top federal prosecutor General Rodrigo Janot charged President Michel Temer on Monday with accepting bribes. The charges have been delivered to a Supreme Court judge who will decide if the case can be sent to the lower house of parliament. The lower house is yet to vote on whether President Temer can be tried or not. Theresa May faced a backlash from politicians in Scotland, Wales and other parts of England after completing a €1 billion deal with the Democratic Unionist Party to prop up her Conservative minority government. The DUP's rivals in Northern Ireland said that the deal violates the Good Friday Peace Agreement and threatens the future of power-sharing government. Suicide bombers killed 9 people and wounded 13 others in multiple blasts in northeast Nigeria on Monday in the latest spate of attacks in the city worst hit by the Islamist militant Boko Haram insurgency. The bombings occurred at the University of Maiduguri, which is the capital of Borno State. In all, 16 people, including the suicide bombers, died in the explosions. Colombia's leftist FARC rebel force of roughly 7,000 members formally completed its disarmament process on Monday to end half a century of war against Colombia. FARC leader Rodrigo Londono is scheduled to formally conclude the disarmament process at a ceremony with the President Juan Manuel Santos in the Central Hall of Mesetas on Tuesday. And finally, the teaser of Rajya Sabha TV's first feature film, Rag Desh, was released on Monday. Now, the movie is based on the Azad Hind Fauj trials. Gurdeep Singh Sapal, CEO of Rajya Sabha TV, is the producer of the film that is directed by National Award winner Tingmangshu Dhulia. Now, Kunal Kapoor essays the role of Major Shah Nawaz Khan, while Amit Saad and Mohit Marwa play the characters of Colonel Gurbaksh Singh Dhillon and Colonel Prem Sehgal. Rana Mazumdar, Siddharth Pandit and Revant Shergill scored the music for the film, while Rishi Punjabi is the cinematographer. The film is scheduled for release on 28th of July in over 800 cinema halls across the country. So don't forget to rush at the nearest cinema hall. So we leave you with the film's teaser as we take your leave. Thanks for watching.
आजादी की जंग लड़ने वाले मेरे दोस्तों, आजादी चाहिए तो उसकी कीमत खून देके चुकानी होगी। तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा।
आईएनए की बागी फौजियों पर अंग्रेज देशद्रोह का मुकदमा चलाएंगे। उन तीनों के बचने के चांसेस कम हैं।
This trial and its judgment will be remembered throughout history.